The Midland Chamber's State of Oil and Gas is made possible with support from Diamondback Energy.
My name is Evan Thomas, and I'm the President and CEO of the Midland Chamber of Commerce. It's my pleasure to welcome you to the 8th Annual State of Oil and Gas. And we're going to start today with an invocation, and today's invocation will be offered by Father Bob Hennigan of Episcopal Church of the Holy Trinity. So please stand if you are able.
Please join me in prayer. Gracious God, thank you for the gift of creation. Thank you for the gift of life. Thank you for all of the resources you have given us, both human and natural. We thank you, Lord, for this community, for this state, for this nation. We ask that you continue to bless us and continue to make us vibrant and loving and full of imagination, creativity, and skill. We ask that you bless our gathering today, bless our speakers, bless our fellowship, and this food. Be with us always, guiding and directing us in all that we think, say, and do, that our words, actions, and thoughts would always be pleasing to you and to the benefit of your children. Amen.
Thank you, Father Bob. And I want to thank you all for joining us today. The State of Oil and Gas is a special event for our community and for our region. You know, in this corner of the world, we're fortunate to have, just as he mentioned, incredible natural resources and incredible, I love that, human resources that have some of the most hardworking and innovative people around. We all know that here in Midland, if you're not directly working in the oil and gas space, which many of you are indirectly impacted by it. Everybody is. It's the primary driver of our community, and it influences every business and every aspect of what we do here. Beyond that, it makes Midland critically important to both the nation and the world. Our business community understands this, and we celebrate this, and we gather here today for a presentation and conversation with one of the industry's premier executives for one of the Permian's leading producers, Diamondback Energy. We are also appreciative of Diamondback Energy as our presenting sponsor, and we're truly fortunate to have them headquartered right here in Midland. Their unwavering dedication to the betterment of our city and the entire Permian Basin shines through everything that they do, from their investments in local education to their employee-led volunteer initiatives. And so thank you, Diamondback, for sponsoring this event and supporting the Midland Chamber, and for being an indispensable part of our city. So please join me in showing our appreciation for Diamondback Energy. So as mentioned, today is our 8th State of Oil and Gas, but the Midland Chamber's history goes much further back. Last year, we were excited to celebrate our 100th birthday at this event. However, we are just excited to look forward into the next 100 years. We're always trying to innovate. We're always trying new things and want to do them for the benefit of Midland and the region. So if something looks a little different today, you might be noticing the cameras. We've got it displayed up here for everybody to see. I'm a little too big for my own comfort, but we this year we're excited to partner with Basin PBS. Laura Wolf, general manager, and her team are here today to capture today's State of Oil and Gas. The important discussions that we have in this room will be broadcast to our region on Basin PBS, disseminating the information to a broader audience. It'll be aired in March, so please be on the lookout for updates on both the Midland Chamber and Basin PBS social media channels. Thank you, Basin PBS. So now, without further ado, I'd like to introduce our keynote for today's luncheon, Case Vantoff is the President and Chief Financial Officer of Diamondback Energy. After his professional tennis career, Case worked in the financial sector with a focus on developing operating models and business plans before transitioning fully to the oil and gas sector in 2012. He brings a wealth of knowledge and experience that he will share with us today. Here shortly, he will be joined by Maynard Holt for a conversation with Case. Maynard is the founder and Chief Executive Officer of Veriton, based in Houston, and with over 27 years of experience in energy, investment banking, and strategic advice, Maynard seeks to convene the brightest minds in and around energy. So please see our program for their full bios, and we're excited to hear from them both today. And right now, let's please welcome Case.
All right, great to be here. Thank you to everyone for having me and joining us today to talk about the state of oil and gas in Midland, Texas, which couldn't be any better than it's ever been, and the future brighter than it's ever been. So first, I want to thank the Chamber for having me, as well as all the elected officials. Evan kind of went through that. Mayor Blong, thanks for coming. Dr. Howard, MISD, thanks for coming. My wife, thank you for coming. And my mom from California, better late than never, Mom. You can walk over here. We're getting started. I got my punctuality from her, so. She went to the Petroleum Club. Right there. Perfect icebreaker. So I'm going to put the slides up because my general counsel's here. There's some legal language that I'll let you guys all read later. And to give you a little background on myself, I was born in Newport Beach, California, spent time in New York City, and somehow ended up here in Midland, Texas. But I couldn't be happier that I'm here today. We've lived here full time now for 8 years, and for 5 years before that, I flew here every week from New York City. So I certainly. Most of my friends here thought I was an alien when I got here, but I've started to melt in a little bit to the community, and we love this place and call it home. I went to USC. I know that's kind of a foreign school to most people here, but I will tell you that we beat both Texas A&M and LSU this year with 6 losses in between, but that's not here nor there. Moved to New York in 2010 after playing some pro tennis. I realized that that wasn't quite the lucrative career I thought it would be, but it was a great time to see the world, and then got here after that. From 5 years, I ran a drilling company called Bison Drilling. It was quite the experience, learning that side of the business, and then moved over to Diamondback full time in 2016, and here we are today. So there are my kids on the right, Teddy's on the left side, and my daughter Valerie on the left, and she's 3 years old and has a lot of opinions now, but they're both born here, and happy to call this place home. This really isn't about Diamondback, but I do want to kind of use Diamondback as an example for what's happened in this basin. Diamondback's come a long way. We if you go on the right side of the page, we started out as a $700 million market cap company that's now over $52 billion. We had an EV of an enterprise value of about the same, and now $66 billion. We started this company, or Travis and the team started the company, and I worked for the private equity group that backed us, and we were actually forced to go public. I know a lot of people know this story, but we were forced to go public because nobody wanted to buy the company, and I think that ingrained a chip on our shoulder that lives here today with a lot of the Diamondback people in this room, and the recently added Endeavor employees from across the street. So it's been a great run. You can see that we've grown our acreage position 17 times. We've grown oil production 237 times. So anybody that says tech companies are the only companies that can grow needs to come to Midland, Texas, and see what we're up to here. And cash flow, I didn't put free cash flow on this page because we didn't know what free cash flow was in 2012, but here we are from a cash flow perspective up 147 times. And I think Diamondback not only has had this success, but so has the Permian Basin. And Diamondback's kind of the poster child for the success of this basin and what we have coming ahead of us. And I always like to say we're just getting started. I don't know if we can grow production another 237 times, but we're certainly going to try, and we got the right people in Midland to do that. So, I think on the left side of the page, I'll kind of leave this as a leave behind, but we had 3 phases, and I think these 3 phases tie to this basin. The first phase was survival. We didn't know anything really compared to what we know today. We're drilling vertical wells, not even very economic at $100 oil, and here we are now drilling 24-well horizontal pads where $250 million is being put in the ground before first oil. So it's been a wild ride for us and for the basin, and we come a long way. The second phase, success. I think the basin started to have success as well in that phase. We did a couple large deals, Energen being the largest, and the basin started to get a lot of attention on the global stage. And I like to say, significance would be the third phase. We had to go through a pretty tough time as a sector and a company and a city in COVID, and I think we learned a lot from that. I think we learned a lot about our business from that, and we all got stronger because of it. And now the Permian is being talked about in every boardroom around the world about what we're doing here. So 6 million barrels a day will get some people's attention. And it's been a good run here coming out of COVID. I think the business and the industry is a lot less volatile than it used to be. And Maynard and I are going to talk about that and how that applies to Midland and all the great things that we need to do here over the next couple decades to continue to grow the place we call home. So I like to say today we call ourselves the must-own pure play. There's less and less pure plays. I know Permian Resources and Vital are probably in the room, so don't take offense to us being the must-own pure play. You're both great too, but it's my speech, so I'm going to go with it. And just to put Diamondback in perspective, we're now the 3rd largest company or oil producer by market cap in the country and 2nd largest producer in Texas. So, and Midland's a huge part of that. So we should all be proud of that. This is kind of a noisy slide that shows all the deals we've done over the years, but it kind of talks about the 3 phases, and I think it ties to the basin as well. And you can see we started out with pretty small deals blocking up the Midland Basin, and then things got a little spicier in the success phase. We bought Brigham Resources for $2.5 billion at the end of 2016. We did the Ajax deal as well as the Energen deal nearly at the same time. Maynard and I were talking about that earlier today. That was a very exciting time when now a lot of our friends, I see Al in the audience, have moved to Midland from Alabama when we merged with Energen and moved everybody here. So that was a big moment for us. Got us into the S&P 500, which for the public markets is a really good place to be from an investor perspective. So that was a big deal. At the same time, we started our Viper Minerals business that's grown significantly, and maybe we'll get them to speak here next year. But they're on a good growth profile, and I know we've done a lot of deals with a lot of people in this room, and I want to thank everybody for that. And then we had significance. We ignore the oil price in the back of this chart where it went negative for a day, but that made us stronger. It made us stronger. We figured out a lot about what we were doing and the best way to develop this resource. And we kind of had a talk to ourselves at Diamondback and said, we're really good at what we do in the Midland Basin, which is drilling wells as cheap as possible and executing at the lowest cost structure. And we kind of went on a pretty aggressive run of acquisitions. We did QEP and Guidon on the same day at the end of 2020. It was December 20th. I'll always remember it. The other side of both of those deals, they didn't know about it, that they're both getting bought at the same time. So that was an interesting weekend talking to them about it. But we pushed through those deals before Christmas because, as you guys know, in our business, if you have a deal on the hook, you gotta get it done. So those were huge for us. And then we did 2 smaller deals in 2022. And then obviously the massive merger with our friends at Endeavor across the street. Putting those 2 businesses together was a shock to the world on Super Bowl Sunday 1 year ago, and I couldn't be happier with how that deal's gone, as well as the amount of people that we put together in this business. I think deals like Endeavor, where 1 + 1 equals more than 2, and we get to keep all the people and grow the business and continue to get bigger and more attention is a good thing. And you know, I know our employees and the Endeavor employees didn't like moving 650 offices in a week, but you know, we've now gotten each other together as one Diamondback here in 2025. So very excited about what the future holds for that combined company. It wouldn't be the state of oil and gas without talking about the state of oil and gas in the Permian. It's pretty impressive what everybody's done in this room. Over 6 million barrels a day of production, almost 50% of U.S. oil production. So, you know, you can see on the bottom side of this page, the black line shows what percent the Permian is of the entire U.S. And, you know, if I'm standing here today, I'm going to bet that number's higher, you know, 3, 4, 5 years from now, just given the amount of resource that we have, you know, left to prosecute, as well as what we don't know about this resource in this basin. It continues to get better, more zones, longer laterals, better completion jobs, better technology. All the above is going to continue to grow this basin. Now, on the gas side, we kind of got to 26.7 BCF a day by accident because we tend to focus on the oil side, and gas is a byproduct. But there's a lot of things that we need to do with our natural gas molecules as well as NGLs that will continue to grow coming out of this basin. Maynard and I are going to talk about a little bit of ideas that we have on power generation, AI, the big buzzword, and all that fun stuff. So more to come. I'm going to bet that the gas number is a lot higher 4 or 5 years from now as well. Another topic that I want to kind of go through quickly is consolidation. You know, there's obviously been a lot of consolidation, and consolidation scares people. And, you know, I think when we were doing the Endeavor deal, we said to the employees that we saw a study that changing jobs was a bigger concern for a person than changing life partners, which, you know, I think is a little ridiculous, but everybody gets a little scared when the job changes. And, you know, we've done a lot of deals at Diamondback. We brought a lot of people into our company, and everybody's had to go through a deal. And it's a tough thing for people because it does provide a lot of uncertainty. But I think, you know, from a basin perspective and from a Midland perspective, you know, I'm trying to pitch today that consolidation actually can be a good thing. You know, we've got a lot of barrels in the hands of well-capitalized, large operators, you can see on this page, and that means a stronger industry that's not as volatile. You know, we're never going to get away from the cycles that naturally happen, but for Midland, for investment in Midland, for investment in the Permian, you know, knowing that we're all going to be here for a long time, these are some of the largest companies in the world, best funded companies in the world, you know, that's a great thing for the longevity and future longevity of this basin and this town. So something I also want to talk about at some point as well. This was a cool trip down memory lane. This is my last slide, and then we'll get to the fun stuff. All the tickers that have consolidated over the years. On the top side were the IPOs. On the bottom, everybody that's sold or merged. And, you know, listen, this basin wouldn't be created without all of those people competing with each other to be the best. And, you know, you have three pure plays left. Diamondback, we've been here the longest. Our friends across the street at Permian Resources, you know, they joined the public world 3 or 4 years ago. I think they're still enjoying it. They haven't had their first down cycle yet, but we'll see how that goes. And Vital Energy, who's been around a long time as well. So, you know, 3 strong companies still represent the Permian as their only assets, with 2 of those, Diamondback and Permian, calling Midland home. So, very exciting times. I'd like to now bring up my good friend, Maynard Holt, who probably has a more encyclopedic knowledge of the history of this basin than almost anybody here. He's probably touched half the deals done in the basin, and you know, we were talking war stories about the Energen merger earlier today. So he's a good friend. He's now learning a lot in his new business at Veritan, and I'm very proud to call him a friend and glad that he could make it here. So let's give Maynard a big round of applause.
Thank you, buddy.
Which side do you want?
Oh, I'm easy.
Okay, it's my good side.
Well, I think the best part was that you referred to this as the fun stuff.
This is the fun stuff because I'm going to lean on you for answers.
So that really, it's like an ESPN thing. I'm going to see if I can make Case cry. No, I'm joking. No, you know, when Case, you were touching on particularly the last couple slides, and consolidation has been a big discussion in the last few years. When you go back through that history, it's been constant consolidation, but what's happened is we've just slowed down the creation of new companies, but consolidation has been a theme since you got here.
Yeah, I mean, I think, everyone in the public world, the investors say, when are you going to consolidate? When are you going to consolidate? And I push back and I say, listen, six or seven tickers are coming off the board every year. Now, the size of the deals has gotten significantly larger, and we've kind of gone through a period, as you know, where there hasn't been as many IPOs or energy seem to not get the capital attention that it deserves from the public markets. I think that's kind of a natural progression for shale, right? It's like a new technology. There's so much money that funnels into it. We kind of figure out what we're doing. There's some consolidation, some winners, but we need, the wildcatter to still be around this business.
So speaking of that, Diamondback's done so many acquisitions. That becomes a skill set in and of itself, like evaluating, executing, integrating, and then how do you keep the, you're now a $50+ billion company. How do you keep that wildcat entrepreneurial spirit alive as the company gets bigger?
Yeah, we kind of have a saying inside of Diamondback, stay humble, stay hungry. It was a saying from my tennis coach back at USC. And I think that's a mentality we got to continue to have at Diamondback, but I think also Midland contributes to that, right? Being in Midland, kind of working our way up from nothing. Fasken Towers aren't the nicest buildings in North America, but we make it work as home and go to work every day, continuing to drive down costs, execute well. And I think we all know that if we don't execute well, we don't have the right to continue to grow and to buy stuff. And so that low-cost execution was the reason why we were able to get all those deals and subsequently, keep the machine moving because we knew at the time, size does matter for the public markets, for investors. There's a lot of benefits to size and scale, and fortunately we're there, but we're not done yet.
So how do you, now that you are much bigger, how do you think about some of those advantages and how you drive costs because you are bigger or drive innovation because you are bigger? Like, what are the things you're noticing because you're bigger that feel better?
Well, I think, you have to have scale to execute these large pads now, right? We went from single well pads, 2 well pads, where anybody could go kind of fund a development plan, to now, we're drilling and completing 24 wells at a time. And if you're a smaller company, it's the right thing for the reservoir, right, that we know today. And there's a lot of money that goes into the ground before you see first production. It's really like a mini offshore project now, the amount of barrels that come out of a project, day one. And, being big has allowed us to execute on that plan on the outside pretty flawlessly. But there's a lot that moves around internally at Diamondback, but the output is, steady execution. But if you're a small company and you only have 1 pad a quarter, it's really hard because investors are very fickle. They want everything within a 1% range, a 1% window, and if you miss numbers, they put you in the penalty box.
So you mentioned investors. We might as well talk about them. You've been seeing them for many, many years now. They've
all the gray hairs from
the gray hairs.
Yeah.
They've gone through loving us, hating us, maybe willing to talk to us again, maybe liking us. Like, what would you tell the audience about an investor interaction in today's world? Are they liking oil and gas again? Are they ready to write a check?
Yeah, I think investors are armchair quarterbacks, right? So they're always right on Monday morning. But a lot of the investors pushed us to grow as much as we did. It was probably the right thing to do at that time in the cycle, and then they get mad at you when oil price goes down. And I think we try to remove the oil price from the equation of what we're trying to build as a company, and that has reduced the volatility of our business and allowed investors to say, listen, I can own Diamondback, and yeah, oil's going to go down $10, but I'm not going to be surprised by what they do. So I think they're cautiously coming back. I think the understanding of our business and what we do and what we're all doing out here in Midland is starting to come back, right? There was a period of time where we were all going away in 2 years, in 2020 and 2021, and I think the death of our industry was greatly exaggerated, as they say.
So you mentioned oil price. Is oil price something that, as a bigger company, partnering with even bigger companies and kind of moving in bigger circles, that you feel you have any more visibility on than you did when you were, a $700 million IPO?
Zero. But that's why I brought you here for oil price forecasts, because I'm going to stay out of that. But what we have tried to do is continue to keep our cost structure low, and that's also ties to this basin, right? The Midland and the Delaware, it's two of the lowest cost basins in the world. And so if that's the case, then you can survive, the inevitable down cycle. And, we've tried to continue to lower that break even, generate free cash, and if we miss on oil price, oil price is going to miss to the high side, and we generate more free cash and return that to investors. It's a much simpler, safer business model.
So you're obviously a colossal Permian producer, but you have a lot of visibility around North America broadly. I think one of the things that comes up in today's world is, where's the next play, or where's the next acreage, or where's the next, what does U.S./North American shale production look like? What's your sense of other basins or new developments, or what plays out in the next 5-10 years?
I think there's going to continue to be new plays explored.
Like, is exploring going up? Do you feel that?
I think it has to, right? Because if you're out of inventory where you are today, you need to naturally go explore. Now, Diamondback, we're not a natural explorer. We're very good at exploring within the Permian Basin. Mm-hmm. But, I think there will be plays that come about, but they're not going to get to 6 million barrels a day, right? And that's the beauty of what we have here. I mean, what we have here is a world-scale asset that can't be replicated. The Bakken peaked at what? 1.4, 1.5 million barrels a day. Yeah. The Eagle Ford peaked at 1.2, 1.3. You need both those combined times 2 to get close to where we are in the Permian.
So you was thinking the Goldman Sachs conference kicked off the year, so that's a place where they're going to talk about energy in every source, oil and gas from every basin, and power, and a gazillion other things. Do you still feel, when you're in a forum like that the Permian is the king? Whether it's a 100% Permian company or ExxonMobil talking, do you still feel this Permian is king mentality?
It's certainly the top topic on the oil and gas side. I think what's interesting is the investor conversations have moved toward energy more broadly, right? So there are more people that know more about nuclear, they know more about renewables, they know more about power than looking at specific type curves in the Permian and what we're doing. And so we've kind of moved into a weight class where they're starting to talk about the Permian in the overall energy spectrum. But at the end of the day, this, from a public markets perspective, there's not a lot of plays to invest in that give you the size, scale, and duration of the Permian. And so it has to be topic of conversation.
Like, when you think about it, the Permian's relative importance, maybe let's go back 3, 4, 5 years and what the Permian's relative importance would have been then and compare it to now. It seems like the Permian's relative importance has gone up because it still has the most running room, it still has the most capacity, and it's the right place to do a lot of things.
Yeah, and listen, I'm talking my own book because we're here in Midland, but these other plays are running out of inventory, right? And they're slowing down in terms of their production. And so for the U.S. to continue to maintain this 13 plus million barrels a day of black oil production, you need the Permian Basin to fill that gap, because we have multiple zones, stacked pay. We're just getting scratching the surface of some of these upside zones. You don't have that in the Bakken. You don't have that in some of these other plays, and that's the beauty of this basin. So, I think the Permian also, and what we're doing here, applies to what OPEC's thinking, what the rest of the world's thinking. I mean, there's only a finite amount of supply, 105, 104 million barrels a day, and we're 6 of it.
So you mentioned this, the consolidation creating sort of a steadier oil and gas environment, maybe more less volatility broadly, and maybe that's good for the companies and the employees and the investors. Where do you see that? Where do you see that showing up in your business? Like, you're now this really big company. Where do you feel that smoothness that you didn't feel it before?
Well, I think slowing down allows you to learn from what you've done, on these pads and these developments and be able to make changes, more effectively. I think in the past we were chasing growth so much that we didn't even get to learn from the prior pad before we had moved on. And so the consistency of execution allows us to drive down costs, study the subsurface, with people a lot smarter than I am looking at that and trying to improve well results rather than running so fast that you have to do the next deal and you have to do this. We tried to do too much. And kind of the lesson learned from me and going into COVID is I think Diamondback was trying to do too much going into COVID. Let's slow down, slow the treadmill down, generate some free cash, and return money to shareholders.
What about people now? It's always brought up, Midland's always had more opportunity than it had people frequently, and now your business is really large and it's changed in some new directions. How do you feel about getting the people you need and the workforce you desire to keep doing what you're doing?
Yeah, we've done a lot of deals and brought a lot of people into Midland, right? And we had to do a lot of selling to get those.
Is there like
people
a
to move.
USC alum group here?
Yeah, there's like two of us probably.
Okay, but growing.
Yeah, growing. My wife's a USC fan now, so she didn't go there, but she has to root for me. But that's about it for
Probably
USC.
required fanship.
Yeah, but we've moved a lot of people here, right? And once they get here, they actually want to stay. It's just convincing them to try it out.
What do you notice about the people that you've brought in or friends that have come in? What are their reflections on moving to Midland and becoming a Midlander and embracing everything that is so cool about the community?
I think that it is a real community, that we all know each other, we all, work together, we see each other, and that was kind of the beauty of the Endeavor deal, right? We merged with a company across the street, and that meant that no one had to leave here, no one had to move to Alabama, move to Houston. They're all here working together, and listen, we were fierce competitors for a long time, but there's a lot of information that we can now share as friends, but in this same city.
So you had this observation about some people view job change as worse than
Spousal
marital change,
Yeah.
which is a dramatic statement. But
Very.
But so if that's true, how do you? You're sort of in the marriage counseling business, then. Like how do you merge in people and say, okay, now we're all on the same team, and what's the art of all that?
It's an art. I mean, it takes a lot of work, and we've tried to spend a lot of time ourselves introducing the management team to the Endeavor people. I mean, I think the Endeavor team, and what we did was, I think we did 15 or 16 breakfasts last fall, just to kind of get in a room, 20 to 30 people at a time, and just talk about who we are. And you can only convince people through your actions over time. And I hope that the Endeavor people starting to realize we're maybe not the monsters from across the street that they thought we were, and we're on the same team, looking to do a lot of great things over the next few years.
I was thinking you mentioned, we talked on investors a little bit earlier, and ESG was such a dominant theme with investors for a while, and somewhere in there we lost the way as to what ESG really means. At some level, ESG means community and shared values and a good culture. How do you guys think about ESG, its relevance, how you interpret it and its relevance to how you run the business?
Yeah, I mean, I think in the public world, it's become a highly politicized term rather than what it actually means. I think for us, it means our environmental and social license to operate. That's what we call it in the basin. I think we all live here, so we want clean air, clean water as best we can, and we want to contribute to the community that we're involved in. And I think you have to have a practical approach to it. I think anything that for us, was economically viable and environmentally supportive, that's going to get attention and dollars. And we try to block out the noise from the public on what that really means and kind of stick to your internal North Star and what ESG should mean to you.
I was thinking, a lot of people don't appreciate it, but ESG, for all its kind of slightly polarizing moments, there were a number of positive things that have happened in the oil field. There's been a lot of improvement, a lot of reduced emissions, a lot of what you just might call just lower impact oil and gas. From your perspective, can you share some of the big picture observations on how much better it's gotten?
Well, I think this basin is the most scrutinized basin in the world, right? We got satellites flying over, we got planes flying over looking for methane leaks. We got, the EDF looking for.
This lunch is being monitored?
Yeah, it's probably being monitored, but it's made us better, right? I think as an industry, you get the top 10 CEOs in the country in a room, they're not going to tell any secrets on what zones we're completing, what type curves look like, what, hot new play there is. But, we're in this kind of fight together as an industry against the naysayers about what we do and why we're important. And so we got together on environmental performance, and there's a lot of good things happening, right? I couldn't tell you what methane detection was 5 years ago, and now 90% of our oil production has real-time methane monitoring. And so I kind of pitched this whole thesis of the bulletproof barrel, right? The barrel produced in the Permian Basin is the lowest cost, lowest environmental footprint, best regulatory environment in the world. Well, what other barrel in the world would you want to produce ahead of that barrel? And that's why, I think we're going to be around a long time.
Do you find that message? So
Don't steal that in your next podcast.
Well, it would have attribution.
Okay, good.
Right there with a fight on symbol.
Yeah.
But do you find that message? I think a lot of us have been frustrated over the years that there hasn't been a acknowledgement that a U.S. barrel, let alone a Permian barrel, but a U.S. barrel is a lower impact barrel than a lot of other choices. Do you think that attitude is changing? Like, do you notice, whether it's investors or Congress people or policy people, that they are getting that?
I think it's moving slowly, but I do think energy in general has become such a hot topic globally. Energy security, energy poverty, things you guys talk about at Veriton. All of those things are starting to get more attention by the layperson. But we needed a show like Landman to get people to pay attention to what we're doing out here in West Texas. But I think it's been a good thing. I mean, the show's ridiculous, but I've got friends, from the coastal cities I grew up in, calling me and saying, "This is what you do down there? Like, I'm coming down. I want to check it out."
I want in.
Who's Billy Bob? And
That's so funny.
so I'm Billy. I get to be Billy Bob.
Nice.
Yeah. I don't think anybody believes that, but
I was thinking about the Permian and shale in general has just always had this, ever since it started, even if you go back to like the Barnett Shale, for some reason there was this sense of like, well, this stuff only exists in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. Like, we've always underestimated shale's potential. It's been part of its legacy. Now when we are talking about whether it's the Bakken or the Eagle Ford or the Permian, do you think we're underestimating the potential of shale to have a next leg up over the next 10 years?
I think we're underestimating it at a price. I think there's a price where other things like secondary recovery that people in this room know way better than I do, start to come into play. And so I think it's kind of, for us, it's let's be as late as possible to that. Let's have as long of inventory duration as possible so that when something else does get invented, because we are only recovering 10%, 12% of the oil in place today, well, there's a lot of oil left to produce. And I think if you have size, scale, and a balance sheet, and you're around the hoop when that next technology comes about, then you can scale it and continue to grow the business.
What you mentioned 2014. Right, and I remember if you had pulled up in the summer, the summer of 14, if you'd pulled up all the research for the price forecast of oil for the next 18 months at that time, I think it would have varied between like high 80s and $105, and we just steered right into it.
Yep.
Right, what is it about? And we've had a number of those events since then. Do you think we've gotten better at knowing one of those is coming, or do you think we're, for some reason, less likely to have one? I don't mean to ask the like, oh God, something terrible.
This time's
question.
different?
Yeah, I know. We all know you shouldn't say that.
No.
But what, as you reflect on those moments, how do we steer clear of them in the future?
Well, I think when you have those moments, you have to reflect, because if you don't, you're going to make more of the same mistakes. So I don't think, I can't sit here and say there's never going to be another down cycle again, but what I will say is we're more prepared for it than we were. I think
we're running the companies differently.
That's right. There's it used to be oil goes up $10, we rerun the model, we add 2 rigs, then oil goes down $15, we rerun the model, we cut 3 rigs. Now we're going to run, we're going to, I kind of give the price range of 50 to 100. If the price range is 50 to 100, don't talk to me about Diamondback's plan because it's going to be the same thing.
So that,
Hopefully I can forecast within that range, but
I guess by implication, a lot of people in the room who have businesses which are not oil and gas businesses, but which are tied to it, it just sounds like that's a real positive message about their ability.
you can invest behind that.
You can invest behind it.
And same with this city, right? You can invest behind knowing that there are these large companies with large balance sheets, with significant inventory, and a lot to develop here. And that's helped Midland, right? You kind of see that chart, survival, success, significance. Midland kind of fits that too, because in the early days, you couldn't eat at half the restaurant because there weren't enough people. I was on 3 waiting lists for an apartment for 4 months just to get one apartment when I first moved here. And Midland's grown into, the size of the economy.
I was thinking you made reference to it a little bit. The Permian Strategic Partnership has been an interesting feature of the landscape where companies are trying to partner with the city and the community. Any observations on those types of efforts?
I think it's continued to get bigger, and there's been more and more companies and people supporting it, which I think is a good thing. I think you've seen a lot of investment around town and restaurants and bars and things for younger people to do as the city gets younger. And, I think all that's good. We need more. I think there was a stat I saw the other day that the Permian contributed $27 billion in taxes to the state of Texas this last year. That is more than 34 states' budgets overall. And I don't think Midland is getting its fair share, so to speak, of some of those dollars back. And that to me is kind of frustrating that we contribute so much to the state and don't get what we probably deserve here coming back.
I was thinking Diamondback it's a homegrown company. It grew up here. It's always been headquartered here. Endeavor, your new partner, same. What do you make of being headquartered here and how that affects the culture of the company and affects your decision making, your performance? What do you think of that?
I think kind of all being here is a huge advantage. We learn so much from what's going on here, and I also think we kind of stay out of the fray of the rest of the country, right? We're kind of I like to joke that we're the least known $50 billion company in North America, and that's a really good thing for us, and to be able to just execute our business here and learn here and keep that kind of Midland chip on your shoulder.
So I was thinking I'll shift gears a little bit. Huge change, COVID, the 2020 election, change in energy policy, a lot of new things came at energy and the world broadly. Learned a few things. Now we've got another change happening. How relevant or how much do you feel kind of Washington, D.C. thinking in your business? Do you try to, it's obviously more important to all of us because it just seems like it's more impactful, but how do you think about the political overlay in the business right now?
Well, I brought you here for politics.
Okay.
So. But my personal opinion, and for Diamondback's opinion, a supportive administration is a good thing, right? Our business needs to be supported, our sector needs to be supported, and for the longest time, I don't think that happened. So it's good to see energy front and center, a lot of attention being brought to our business. Now, from a day-to-day execution and operations perspective, we really try to separate policy from rhetoric, right? And so policy, for us, 100% based in Texas, has been very supportive for a long time. And so that's, I think, a positive thing. Now, there's certainly some things that we disagree with policy-wise in D.C., but most of it's rhetoric, right? And so we just try to kind of stay in our little corner of West Texas here and execute our business.
So you
what do you think about the political environment?
Well, I think, I would
It's going to be on TV later.
I'll tell you what, I was watching Chris Wright's testimony a little bit this morning. If you get a chance, it's definitely worth watching. I think the way it kind of simplistically comes across, and I mean this in a good way, is I think the previous administration had, we are going to decarbonize energy systems. That is our number one goal. And I think this is a philosophy of We think more energy is better than less energy, and we are choosing the path of more energy, and then we're going to be finding those things which are lower cost, most reliable, least impact. But it is a change in what's the goal.
Yeah.
And I just think that is super positive for people in energy, for people who care about energy, for people who are managing costs. And costs, I think that I'll ask you this kind of as a way of coming back at you, but because my background was oil and gas, and what of course has been the story over the last 2-3 years is power. Like power is just the dominant discussion, so we all have to get our heads around power. But what is a really unreported fact of life in the Western world is that it doesn't matter if you're talking about Germany or Calgary or Australia or California or even parts or Texas, power prices have gone up. And they have largely because of the choices we've been making around the flavors and how those grids work. The inputs.
Yeah.
So power is a big thing. I think this administration will be focused on it. But power has become such a big thing. How, as a large energy player, do you start to get your head around power and its impact on Diamondback?
Well, I think there's two things, right? I think there's power to execute on our business, which we're short power in the Permian, short power in Texas. And then there's the cost of power in the gas side of our equation where, we just went through a year where we averaged 20 cents an MCF to sell our gas in the basin. Well, why not build more power generation here and cut off the loop of selling your gas for free and paying full price for power? And that's what we're kind of thinking about and working on, because there's so much embedded power in the amount of natural gas that's being produced here, in the slides we showed earlier.
Do you find that thinking about all this is about the future of Midland, the future of the Permian, and how oil and gas is integral to all that? The gas opportunity is maybe not discussed as much. The Permian is such a gas powerhouse. The gas is so cheap.
By accident.
By accident. And if you think about 5, 10, 15 years out, what we might be doing with that gas is pretty exciting.
Yeah, I think there's going to be a lot more power gen here. The mythical maybe data center development, I think, could be something that's important, because you're starting to see all this talk about data center development. Well, they're taking power away from normal citizens around the country to power data centers. Well, why not do it here where you can do it off the grid with significant scale and not be taking energy away from the regular citizen or business that needs it? And so that's the kind of hope. I think we're going to learn a lot more about it in the next year. I mean, I think a year ago today was kind of when we started talking about it internally. And I think it's going to be a good next wave of growth for this area.
It's interesting because if you talk about, it's easy to fall into the trap if somebody says, what's the future of the Permian? They start doing drilling location math.
That's right.
And they shouldn't do that. Yes, we all care about that, but there's so much.
That number is dynamic, right? It's
yes,
continue
right.
To go
there's a
up.
whole technology that can change that dramatically, but there's so much outside of that could happen energy-wise.
Yeah, I mean, a 1.5 gigawatt plant needs 225 million cubic feet of gas a day. Well, we're growing gas production 2 BCF a day a year. I mean, we could have a massive source of power here for a long time.
I was thinking one thing, right after you guys did the Endeavor deal, there was a press release where you signed a partnership with Oklo, which is a small micronuclear company. Wow, right? Like, would you have ever thought you'd be signing a deal with a nuclear company? And how do you guys think about small-scale nuclear and its potential?
I just kind of see it as an all-of-the-above energy policy, right? So we need power here. We need power for our facilities. Every little facility is its own little, power plant. And, I think it's exciting. I think it's rare for an oil and gas person to talk about nuclear, but I think it's part of the equation. And we need to figure out a way to utilize it correctly. Now, the technology is a long way away, but maybe Veriton can advance it faster than what's going on right now.
How do you? This gets back to your time.
I'm trying to get back to you.
I'm not trying. I just got so many questions. Just going to keep,
Yeah.
I'm like the tennis ball machine that's just coming across the net. But how do you? Maybe this is a little bit about the work we've done together, but you've got to keep up with a lot. you referenced it, and new technologies. Diamondback has made some interesting investments in clean fuels and things that are pretty unique. Like, how do you think about the technology investing the company's done and what might pay off, and how you know how to make those investments?
Yeah, we've really tried to do things on the side outside of the main business, which is execute, oil and gas production as effectively as possible. But we try to do some things that could make our shareholders money tangentially to that.
Options.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of it, in the early days, it was pipelines out of the basin. That protects us commercially, gets our crude to big markets, and we can make a little money on it. Now it's power, decarbonization, like the Verde Clean Fuels investment we're hoping to put in Martin County, takes 35 million cubic feet a day of gasoline, 35 million cubic feet a day of gas, and converts it to 3,000 barrels a day of gasoline that you could, put your truck connected to it and drive off. And that's kind of exciting.
It's really exciting.
And the exciting part is, when can you do it at scale? And if you can do it at scale, that's where you really drive a lot of value. And this all kind of ties back to our natural gas production and trying to earn more on our natural gas production than we have, to date.
I heard recently that investors are as excited about natural gas as they've been in a long time.
They should be excited about oil, in my opinion.
They should be excited about oil. Well, while they've been excited about natural gas, oil's had a nice run here last couple weeks. But what do you make of the world's conversation around natural gas, whether it's through LNG exports or just as a fuel? Do you think natural gas is we should be optimistic on it from a consumption standpoint over the next decade? Is it a fuel that captures market share?
I think 100% it does, because the world's woken up to that being a very viable solution for, baseload power, long-term, security of energy, and, low cost. And, the whole, movement to renewables, I think, kind of is falling on deaf ears, because you need something to make up for the time when the wind's not blowing, the sun's not shining. And natural gas is going to play a huge role in that globally. And you guys study this. I mean, the amount of people without access to affordable energy, and there has to be a way to get them power and energy, and that, in my mind, that has to be natural gas or LNG from the U.S.
It's actually a great moment in Chris Wright's testimony this morning. He talks about 1 billion people are living well with lots of energy, but there are 7 billion who are not. And you can't have energy policies that ignore that equation.
That's right.
I was going to say, when you just were talking there about renewables, I was having the landman flash, because there was Billy Bob Thornton gives this
Big
speech.
pitch on wind.
Yeah, this speech at one point about energy sources, which is entertaining, certainly. But there's some truths in there.
There's a lot of truths in the show. I think it's good for our sector.
Well, yeah. What do you think about the oil and gas industry's ability to communicate, express itself, defend itself, cultivate the good public image? Like, has it changed? Why has it changed? How do we make it better?
I ask myself this question a lot. Like, why is our industry not good at marketing itself? And I think the reason is our industry's been taken for granted, right? You're taken for granted that your light's going to switch on, that your car's going to start, and every barrel of oil that we produce, every molecule of gas that we produce gets bought every day without having to market it. We don't have to convince you to buy an iPhone.
You don't have a huge marketing department
that
says you should buy this.
A lot of engineers in the room. The engineers aren't quite the best marketers. They're very, very good at engineering, but that's why I think we're taken for granted. And the momentum's shifting. People are starting to, energy security, that energy poverty, Chris Wright, all of that stuff I think is good for our story, and we shouldn't be ashamed of it, right? We have to be proud of it. We can't try to negotiate. We got to say, this is all good, this is all important, and we're not here to negotiate.
You mentioned when you had the stat up about 700 million to 50 billion, and those other growth stats you had. Outside of Silicon Valley, things don't usually have stats like that. As the tech companies have gotten more interested in energy, need more energy, so on and so forth, do you feel that community of people changing, coming to Midland, wanting to understand energy better? Like, what would you tell us there?
I think they're wanting to understand energy better. I don't think they've come to Midland in a big way yet, but I think, again, going on this power theme, and if we start to make some announcements on the power side and say, hey, here's this place called the Permian Basin, land's super cheap, there's a lot of water for cooling, there's a lot of natural gas for cheap power, and we can do it off the grid. You might get some attention from the tech players in this, AI race.
We're going to get more Californians in Midland.
No, just me and my mom. That's the only two Californians that are allowed here right now. But I moved from California to Midland before it was cool, so just remember.
Well, so I was just, as we pause and reflect on some of the things that have come up here, and everybody here is interested in how does this community look over the next, their kids, their grandkids, the future. Capital of U.S. oil, incredibly growing gas, talented engineering-based, technology-focused community, a place where you can do stuff, right? You can do stuff.
Get stuff
People
done.
want to build stuff. They want to make it happen. And all these options we've talked about, whether it's data centers or anything else, I mean, it seems like we've painted a picture unwittingly of just like that's the capital of the United States' energy world for a decade or two or three at a
long
minimum.
time.
So why shouldn't we be optimistic about all that?
That's kind of the key theme, is to be optimistic today, so I'm excited.
Or I'm just checking the logic there.
Yeah,
but
that was the logic.
It felt pretty good.
No, Midland's got a lot of growth opportunities ahead of it. I mean, for a city to grow as much as it has over the last 10 years, kind of 8-10% GDP growth a year for 10 years, I mean, that is massive, and it put this city on the map. And so, there's still a lot to do, and a lot of people to grow up here, a lot of kids to grow up here. The average age continues to get younger, and we need to invest in the community to support that.
So, unfair question. We covered a gazillion things. What do we not talk about, or what's a fun thing we should have touched on? I didn't get a chance to make you cry.
Not yet.
I was hoping to.
I was worried 20 minutes ago you were going to stop, but here you are 20 minutes later. But no, it's been a pleasure to be here and be in front of all of you and call Midland home, and I appreciate you coming to keep the conversation moving.
Well, it goes without saying, it's quite an honor to be here, to be with you in this community, and to get to share this moment. So for me personally, thank you.
Thanks a lot.
Awesome. Thanks, Case.
Wow, that was a great conversation. I really appreciate you guys. Case, thank you for your insight. Thank you for your leadership here in our community. Maynard, I think you just proclaimed us the energy capital of the world, so just take that back to Houston with you if you don't mind. I want to again thank Case and Maynard. Gentlemen, thank you so much. We do hope that whenever you come to events like this, you're able to take that information and apply it to your business or to your activities in our community. So I hope that you found it useful and as engaging as I thought it was. And with that, we hope you have a great afternoon. Let's all make Midland the best place we can. Thank you guys so much.
The Midland Chamber State of Oil and Gas is made possible with support from Diamondback Energy.